Deriving Disarmaments from Debates and Diplomacies. On August 6, 1945, during World War II, the United States dropped an atomic bomb above Hiroshima, Japan, killing over 80,000 people. Seeing these horrors inflicted on innocent people along with the destruction caused by the US and Japan inspired Norman Cousins, an American journalist, to become an anti-nuclear weapons activist. Cousins believed that there is a need for writers who can restore to writing its powerful tradition of leadership in crisis. Using his position as the editor of the Saturday Review, gained in 1942, he constantly advocated for world peace through nuclear disarmament in his papers. Following the use of nuclear weapons in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the debate over further testing of nuclear weapons and the diplomacy of Norman Cousins with world leaders greatly impacted the nuclear arms race. It caused the writing of the 1963 Partial Test Ban Treaty and is vital in understanding how countries and citizens collaborated to ensure disarmament in their time. However, the possibility of nuclear war has not been eliminated just yet. The story of nuclear weapons testing has many roots, and one of them is on August 29, 1949, when the Soviet Union dropped the RDS-1, their first atomic bomb. This explosion yielded the destructive power of 22 kilotons of TNT, posing as a dangerous nuclear weapon. The test shook the United States, forcing them to pay more attention to the Soviet nuclear developments. The Cold War had begun. As the 1950s dawned, the Soviet Union was keeping up in the nuclear arms race, so the United States decided that it was time to develop a hydrogen bomb, a step up from the atomic bombs in the nuclear weapons category. President Truman signed the Atomic Energy Act, appointing the Los Alamos National Laboratory to build the weapon. That weapon, the Castle Bravo bomb, was estimated to yield over 400 times more than the atomic bomb detonated above Hiroshima. This controversial knowledge immediately resulted in many scientists and nuclear engineers abandoning the project, as a bomb of such power would be too devastating. However, despite the lack of people, the Los Alamos National Laboratory was able to successfully engineer Castle Bravo, the very first weaponized hydrogen bomb. On March 1, 1954, at 6:45 a.m., the United States of America detonated Castle Bravo in Bikini Atoll, Marshall Islands. The bomb yielded destruction 2.5 times bigger than what was calculated.
The testing of Castle Bravo became the worst radiological disaster in U.S. history, causing a massive fallout of radioactive debris across a 7,000 square mile radius. The Minister of Health of the Marshall Islands proclaimed, approximately 5 hours after the detonation, it began to rain radioactive fallout at Rongelap. Within hours, the atoll was covered with a fine, white powder-like substance. No one knew it was radioactive fallout. The children played in the snow. They ate it. Castle Bravo caused the world to rise against nuclear testing. In 1954, Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, proclaimed to the US and the Soviet Union during the Cold War, "No country, no people, however powerful they might be, are safe from this destruction if this competition of mass destruction and Cold War continues." Norman Cousins also had this point of view about nuclear testing, and he wrote about it in his articles. His avid advocacy for nuclear disarmament, like his issue called "We Are Facing a Danger Unlike Any Danger That Has Ever Existed," caught the attention of President Dwight Eisenhower. Eisenhower saw the potential that citizens had instead of world leaders leading the debates, so he called upon Norman Cousins to communicate with the Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev and the citizens of the world. One of these meetings was the Dartmouth Conferences, proposed by Cousins in 1959 when President Eisenhower asked him to communicate with the Soviet Union as a citizen.
President Eisenhower asked me to go to the Soviet Union for the purpose of seeing whether it might be possible to create dialogues between both countries. The president felt that the diplomatic process needed to be strengthened between the two countries. He also felt that diplomats tended to dig in at a very early stage in negotiations, but he felt that individual citizens could discuss important questions without penalty to either government. They could report back to the diplomats who then might start from an advanced position. This was the beginning of what is now known as the Dartmouth conference series.
Norman Cousins and President Eisenhower attempted to stop nuclear weapon testing. However, their efforts didn't persuade everyone, because on October 30th, 1961, the Soviet Union tested yet another bomb, known as the Tsar Bomba. The 35-mile radius around the detonation point Sukhoi Nos was instantly destroyed. Knowing that they weren't the only ones with groundbreaking technology, the United States ruptured. The debate around continued building and testing and the subsequent radioactive fallout and destruction demanded diplomacy. On October 14, 1962, while the U.S. was considering the best diplomatic path forward, an American U-2 spy plane passed over Cuba, locating a Soviet missile being assembled. President of the time, John F. Kennedy, like Eisenhower before him, turned to Norman Cousins to aid in a diplomatic solution to what became known as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Public concern began to grow with the Cuban Missile Crisis and the tests by the Soviet Union and the United States. Kennedy urged Cousins to convince Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev to agree to a nuclear test ban treaty draft. So, in December 1962, Cousins met alone with Khrushchev in an exchange lasting over 3 hours. After the intense conversation, Khrushchev believed in writing a treaty outlawing the testing of nuclear weapons.
One of the several people opposing the treaty was Edward Teller, the father of the hydrogen bomb, who is an outspoken activist for the use and testing of nuclear weapons. He co-developed the atomic and hydrogen bombs, and his fierce opposition to communism supported his beliefs that Americans should protect themselves. Another obstacle to the signing of the treaty was the debate on whether underground testing would be allowed. Due to a diplomatic failure, the terms became foggy. This time, President Kennedy and Khrushchev reached an agreement entirely excluding underground terms to ensure that there would be no need for on-site inspections. So, after much debate, diplomats finally agreed on this limited test ban of nuclear weapons, signed on July 25, 1963.
Negotiations were concluded in Moscow on a treaty to ban all nuclear tests in the atmosphere. For the first time, an agreement has been reached on bringing the forces of nuclear destruction under international control.
Because of the partial test ban treaty, radioactive fallout and the destruction caused by it was reduced by a large amount. The treaty was a positive matter, helping people live without the consequences of nuclear fallout. Following the treaty, rooted by Norman Cousins, many treaties were signed surrounding nuclear weapons. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, limiting the number of nuclear weapons. The Threshold Test Ban Treaty, stating that all nuclear tests must be lower than 150 kilotons of TNT. And recently, the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, banning all nuclear testing. The Senate of the United States rejected this treaty, wanting to test the weapons they would have available. Through the development of many treaties, Norman Cousins impacted nuclear testing, and his obituary by McGeorge Bundy shows his contribution. One part reads, "I saw close up how Norman's insistence that we must go forward on these matters in early 1963 became an important force in the process that led from the initially gloomy aftermath of the Cuban Missile Crisis, first to Kennedy's speech at American University, expressing a new hope for Soviet-American peace, and then onward to the treaty that stopped most of the world's atmospheric nuclear testing. As Kennedy might have put it, this success had 100 fathers, and Norman was surely one of them, because you could truly say that without him, it might not have happened." A current impact of this story is on the invasion of Ukraine, which started on February 24, 2022. Vladimir Putin is also threatening nuclear action against any country that aids Ukraine. This fear is one of the impacts of nuclear weapons, which has stopped NATO and the US in giving direct military aid to Ukraine. However, the past debates and diplomacies relating to nuclear disarmament have led to gatekeeping measures that has made it difficult for Russia and any country to use nuclear weapons freely. This event is the closest to a nuclear war since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Stopping these consequences has been through the work of the many world leaders and citizens like Norman Cousins. However, the world has not escaped the grasp of nuclear bombing just yet. Current events show that nuclear war is something to be afraid of, something that is possible. The world needs a leader, like Norman Cousins, to guide the elimination of nuclear destruction.